cope when the things get tough?
Well, I'd say in that instance, there was a lot of shock initially, and there was kind of that torment of, oh, what am I going to do now? Like, oh, there's so much of the unknown, because the unknown can be so scary, and like, what can I do? But then, you know, I just had to sit with those feelings, but then I also had to be like, okay, well, I need to figure this out now. I need to figure out what I'm going to do and how I can be better from this and how I can move on from it. And yeah, specifically in that instance, I just contacted the prof and I said, like, you know, thank you, like, for your honesty. Can you just kind of say some things that maybe I could have done better, so the next time I can do this, I can make sure those qualities?
Because I will be back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and keep that perseverance as well, too. No, I really appreciate that as well, too. So I guess our next question here is, what do people learn about you with time?
I would say my sense of humor is a big one. It's often very dry and can be very strange. And it's something that I have a sense of awareness of, especially when I'm kind of just getting familiar with people. I'm trying not to do it too much, just in case, like, oh, maybe it might kind of weird people or make them feel uncomfortable. But I feel like, you know, the more you get to know somebody, and you almost kind of see a bit of your own sense of humor in them sometimes. And then that just, I feel like that just gives me the chance to be like, okay, you know, I will kind of favorite thing to do with people is to ask non sequitur hypotheticals that are just outrageous and crazy. There was a period a couple years back where every single person I would meet, I would ask, how would you feel if I married your mom and became your new stepdad? And initially they'd be like, oh no, like, I don't want that. But
there would be the initial shock. They would thank you for the experience. They would ask you for a little bit of feedback of how they could have learned more.
And then that would just kind of lead, and then I just really lean into it, be like, listen, champ, I know it's really hard having a new father-in-law. What do you say we go out back and toss the pigskin?
Yeah, let's go.
And I've had people who have either laughed their heads off from that, or people who have just been completely mortified by the idea. Both very, very valid responses. With that kind of question.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good. I really appreciate the satire that it comes with that as well, too, because I'm a huge satirical guy. I love satire. It's so good. So our next question is, do you have any special skills and or talents?
Oh, special skills.
We are featuring, like, already some pretty special skills when it comes to cinema critique and when it comes to prose as well. But is there anything else that you maybe just use for an actual true hobby, something that you just really enjoy?
Oh, that's a tough question, because film is so much of my hobby.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I'm most passionate about in life, and especially as an artist, I find it's always a way for me to broaden my artistic sensibilities. And even recently, like, I've made a point to try and watch a movie I've never seen every day, so it just really broadens, like, my sense of my understanding of cinema, and it's always deepening. And then, of course, going into, as an artist, I regard myself as being multidisciplinary, because I'm interested in so many different fields, and I'm interested in learning so many different fields. You know, when I did my degree, it was in performance and theater creation, and that leads to things like acting and writing, which are primary things, but I'm also very passionate about editing. I love you know, using video editing software and constantly teaching myself the like various ways and how I can make videos better. And then recently, I guess I've evolved myself into a website designer.
Ooh.
Because I recently...
Okay, well, good to know. We'll have to check that out as well, too. That's fantastic. And I find, kind of like building upon that, I find that a lot of artists, especially kind of in smaller communities, not metropolitan locations, have to kind of be multidisciplinary. Like, I find it's like I would find it quite boring. Like you can certainly specialize in something, and
Absolutely.
some artists eventually get to get to the point of their career where they do specialize and only do one thing. But I find, especially when beginning or just starting out, or you really have to kind of branch out. You really have to just find out what exactly like really helps you tick, and and kind of achieve that as well. So. When it comes to, so there is so much about your artistic career that is still very much going out there, trying out new things as well. Is there anything still that you're anticipating you want to try? Is there still something just out of reach?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess in an artistic sense, directing I'd be kind of interested in getting into, because I didn't really involve myself too much with that in university. And often I direct myself in my own work if I'm just doing something kind of solo. But I would be interested in so many different hands on the project that you got to check on. So yeah, something like that would definitely broadening, because I'm always attracted to the ideas of experimenting things I've never tried before.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Well, don't sell yourself too short. I know, like, we can definitely get in our heads and be our own worst critic, I find sometimes, especially when it comes to introversion versus the extroversion sides of ourselves as well, too. Like, there are lots of times I feel introverted myself, but yet still on camera as well, too. I still have to do it, right? So,
right.
No, that's great. So, okay, yeah. So our next one, this is probably one of my favorites because it can definitely draw the best out of each of us. But what is a unique experience or adventure that you've been a part of?
Okay. So I'm actually diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and I would say that's certainly quite a life experience, because it's being low enough on the spectrum to have an awareness of it, but still being on it to know that there's going to be so many things that are going to be out of my control, and I'm just going to have like these habits in my life, and it certainly causes challenges, but I also think there's good sides to it, of course, too, and I think ever since I kind of discovered I was on the spectrum, it really gave me a passion to raise more awareness for neurodivergency, and to and there's so much like false information that goes around about it, and these like preconceptions that people develop about it, and so I'm definitely interested in doing work that sort of like authenticizes the autistic experience. So people can just develop a stronger understanding of it, and
Does your work kind of revolve a lot around this experience?
I would say it influences my experience, or my work for sure. I'd definitely be interested in writing about it, and from a personal perspective, and it's going to be. And then I also think it can be a blessing and a curse in some of the work I do, because it makes me very detail oriented. I'm always focusing on every little thing, which is both a good and bad thing, because it means really paying attention to what you're doing, but it can also sometimes border on the sense of obsession, like getting obsessed with like, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be this exact way I envision it. So,
no, that's a really good perspective to take on it. So like my brother is also high functioning autistic as well. So, or sorry, not as well, but he is high functioning autistic. And so what I've certainly noticed as well too is that like you're definitely finding the things that you can excel at, being like you're really good with this at focusing on specific tasks as well, but then maybe that awareness is able to kind of draw you back when you notice that you're starting to tiptoe towards that obsession as well. It's very interesting, and I think that's a really good perspective to kind of try to play that to your advantage as much as you can, right? So that's very unique. I appreciate you sharing that with us as well too. So the next one is, so how do you celebrate when life starts running smoothly?
Oh, okay. So going back to gift giving,
Okay.
I'm a self-gift giver too.
Nice, nice.
And I always make sure to have like specific treats for the instances when life's going well. Like
Yeah.
maybe I have something to celebrate for, or I just feel really good about myself. Because I think, being able to give those things to myself, it makes it a little more special.
Yeah.
Because it's almost your wants more when you can give it when you're in such like a positive place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Has there been a gift that that you waited for an extended period of time, and then eventually gave yourself? How long was your like steel wall basically? How strong was your will? Is what I'm asking.
All right. Let's see. So a gift I gave to myself when I graduated from university was I had bought myself a PlayStation 5. And,
okay. One of the few.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where like, okay, I'm not much of like a gamer, but there's a few different games I definitely like to play. Like, I've heard Last of Us is really good. And,
yeah, it's okay.
And it was like it was something like, I've only graduated once, why not just get it and I'll play it once in a while. And so I'd say will on it was pretty strong going into it, but I was definitely pleased to get it because so far I've enjoyed having it.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. I know that, so like, for example, I've tried to do some strategies like that as well, too. I find that when it comes to monetary gifts for myself, the will is very good. But if it's something that I can just go and have at any point, like chocolates or just something like that, I can't. It just happens. It just happens.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah, it's ways that I wish we all could be better at. But no, that's lovely. So I guess our next question is, what are your hobbies and interests outside of work or school? So this is more specifically like less so, I think, than the cinema. But what would you? What are your thoughts?
Let's see. A big hobby of mine is, excuse me, going out for walks. I love walking, and usually I'll have my AirPods in, maybe I'm listening to a song or something. I love exploring too, like walking to places that I've never been before, because I think walking just gives me a sense of like peace. A lot tougher, but a lot slushier.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any favorite walking paths here locally?
Favorite walking paths? Let's see. Oh, I love walking around the High Level Bridge. That's such a beautiful spot, and again, tricky in winter. But that's a perfect place to go during like spring or summer because the big bridge over there and all the vegetation. It's just such a gorgeous place to walk around.
I really appreciate a lot of the mix-up of the colors, and I like taking photos that are out in nature as well too, just because, well, it helps inspire my art as well too when I start drawing maps or something like that as well too. So what do you get out of that's what I get out of it. What do you get out of when it comes to walking out in nature? Just a clear head, a clear empty headspace, or?
Yeah, well, we had kind of talked earlier about coping when it gets tough. I think that can sometimes be a part of it because I feel like I can sometimes have the tendency, if I'm sitting in one spot, to just constantly think about that and not be able to remove myself of it.
Yeah.
Walking is a chance to remove myself from it, and just a chance to just get it out of my head for a little while. In general, get out of my head for a while and kind of just explore and just take in the sights and the sounds and kind of just be in this moment.
Totally. Yeah. Perfect. So I guess let's go back to a little bit to your university career and what inspired that. So like the question directly is, what inspired you to pursue the current career or field of study?
Well, I can definitely pinpoint the timeline in which it happened because I'd mentioned I'm very passionate about different forms of art, and that was something I had ever since I was a kid, and that sort of led me into taking drama in high school, which wasn't the best program, but it gave me a lot of positive affirmation doing it. But I think also it gave me the chance to put myself out there a bit more, because I'd said I was introverted. I was really introverted when I was a kid. I just had crippling anxieties to talk to people, and I feel like doing theater kind of gave me this chance to both just not really be myself for a minute, and to kind of just be somebody else and to go through what they're kind of going through. But I think it also kind of helped me to understand my emotions a little better.
Was there a character or defining moment that like helped you take the next step towards like that open mindset that you're describing?
Yeah, one of the first plays I did in high school was a play called, I'm blanking on it, Drop Dead Juliet.
Oh, nice.
Which was one of those fourth wall breaking pieces where the characters of Romeo and Juliet come out and interact with Shakespeare. I played Shakespeare in it, and Shakespeare was just this absolutely crazy, like loud character. Couldn't be more 180 from how I was at that time. And I did that, and it just, I got so, kind of when I graduated high school, I don't want to, there was kind of a sense of I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I think there was some pessimism to the idea, like I like acting, but I don't know if I could make a career out of it. But then it was also the idea, well, I got to do something. So I came here to Lethbridge, joined the Faculty of Fine Arts and performance degree, and then just taking that and the experiences I had in it. We mentioned the Acting 2 one, but also just meeting the profs, talking about it, and just growing my passion for it. Like, that really gave me the piece, like, no, this is what I want to be doing. I love being a storyteller, and I just want to be able to tell the stories that I want to tell, and maybe not everybody's going to like them, but it's what I love to do.
Yeah. So the wacky and zany 180, like basically the 180 character is what kind of drew this out and what brought this into the field. Like, are there any, do you whenever you encounter another character like that, or if you have, does that kind of remind you of that beginning experience as well too? Like,
I definitely haven't played a character that crazy. Shakespeare got pretty violent in that one.
Oh my goodness.
He made some threats, but no, I could definitely see that. I think that attracted me to the type of characters I like to play, the characters who are so different from myself. Because,
Is that drives you as an artist when you're trying to perform them, or is it more of like their character mentality, like that you derive from the dialogue?
I'd say it's circumstantial. It depends on the role. Definitely some roles where you feel it more in your body. Let me try to think of a sample. I did Dracula Comedy of Terrors a couple of years back. And that was one where it was a bit of both, because it was the physicality where we were in place, but it was also how can you exist in this body, and particularly because we were playing different characters at a time, you really had to evoke this sense of, okay, these are different people, and how do I convey that to the audience? But then also, you know, in the dialogue, because we're playing such different roles, how do you make each of them unique? Because they're zany, funny characters, but you got to still make them distinct. Like, this character can't quite talk the same as this character.
Okay, no, that's really interesting. Okay, well, we got a couple more questions just before we finish off as well too. So the next one I think we have is, what are your future aspirations and goals? Do you have a place that you're thinking of moving to kind of further your career, or take that as you will?
Yeah, I think in the short term, I'm perfectly happy being in Lethbridge. I could definitely see myself maybe going into Calgary or something like that. Not that it's particularly cheap to live there.
Of course,
But no, the thing that I find most is just the opportunity to be able to do what I do. It doesn't really matter where that is, or like necessarily how I do it, as long as I still have the passion and the heart to still do it. And I feel as though I always, no matter what the form it has to be, I'll make it work because it's what I love doing. And a plus would be is if someday I can get paid to do this.
Yeah.
But like that's definitely doesn't have to be a necessity. And I think in the end, if I can just know that I made something that maybe inspired somebody else in the way like art inspired me to get into this, and I made art that left an impact with people, I think that would just be the most amazing feeling in the world.
Of course. Well, we're going to have plenty of chances to dive into more stuff related to you here very soon. Thank you so much for viewing so far, whether it be on the live stream or otherwise as well too. We'll be right back after we just take a very short break as we kind of set up for the next part of our feature. But once again, this has been the Windy City's Finest. I'm
the Windy City's Finest. I'm Perry. He's Clark, and you are?
No, again, I'm Mason.
That's awesome, awesome. Yes, and we're going to be diving into some of your writing in this segment. And so, yeah, so this is a new play, is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome, new play, and it is called The Fox with the Rainbow Tail by Mason Arsenault. That's how I say your last name, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. And yeah, like, so this is a new play for you. And is there anything you can share about, like, is this the first play you've written, or is it just a different style of play that you're writing?
Definitely a different style, because this idea for this actually stemmed from doing it as a short poem.
Okay.
And then kind of as it started to develop and my interest in sort of experimenting with form a bit, it kind of evolved into, well, what if it took the language of something like poetry, but it adapted it to the stage? And it's certainly been interesting experience, because it's definitely a clash of mediums at times, I would say.
Totally, yeah. But that sounds really interesting, kind of finding where those mediums intersect, I guess, is kind of what it sounds like it's been a process of. So that's awesome. Yeah, and it is a work in progress, is that right?
That is right.
Awesome. Always good to keep that in mind. Works in progress it's a part of the process. I mean, it's in the title. And yeah, no, I thank you for sharing this with us at this stage. And it's always vulnerable sharing something when it isn't finished. But I guess that would be a question. Like, how do you know when something you're working on is finished? Or do you? Like, do you have any road marks, if that's the right word for it, that you know, like, okay, I've done this in the story and now it's done, or I've done 3 revisions and now it's done. Like, is there anything like that for you yet, or not yet, that comes to mind?
I think it always helps a perfectionist with my work, so I'm always of the mentality, if I can get it right the first time, then I'd be pleased. But no, I think once I've kind of gotten to where I envision the story ending, then that kind of gives me the chance to relook it over, and especially in dealing with something that has the language of poetry and can have this very specific rhythm to it. I do feel obligated to go through and kind of read it now all together to make sure, rhythm sounds good and everything, and then it always helps to share it with somebody else and get another perspective. I think it's very important because it's allowing somebody to look at it in maybe a way you can consider or you didn't even think of, because that can influence your own perception of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, sharing your work is a really important part of the process. And I know that you love movies and editing, and I know for myself, it's kind of like you work on it over and over and over again, that sometimes you start to miss things that stand out to other people that are reading it for the first time right away, and so no, that's awesome to hear that, you're open to sharing with people and that it gives you insight that you might not be able to see at the time. So that's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna open up our first page here, and right away we have our characters, and I'm just gonna write some of these on the whiteboard, but
each one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just gonna push this over. Nice. So the first one is narrator. So why did you want a narrator in this story?
Well, it was very much influenced by children's literature, I think, because I had written this to be theater for young audiences pieces, and that got me thinking about, you know, like fairy tales in particular, that kind of like overarching voice who kind of, what's the word? Not necessarily influences what the characters do, but kind of accompanies it in a sense. Which is also something you can see in like the works of Dr. Seuss, who was also a big inspiration in this piece. In you know how oftentimes the narrator would be saying things as they're happening, but it's not necessarily to
Influence.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily to influence.
Or to make it like obvious. It blends together. It's a pairing.
Yeah, it's a pairing. Interesting. And you mentioned Dr. Seuss and that was a kind of large inspiration for this. And I'm just curious, are there any other examples of movie?
This narrator's voice, I circle back to Dr. Seuss again. It was kind of in Dr. Seuss, but a specific example was if you've ever watched the animated, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and how that narrator, you know, it's a blending of narrator and character voices, and oftentimes the narrator will complete thoughts, or you know, he'll be saying what's happening as we're seeing it, but and it's this sort of outside voice looking in.
Totally, outside voice looking in. I love that.
And
No, please.
On top of that, outside looking in, I kind of liked the idea of the narrator not necessarily like cutting away from the story, but we get sort of his insight into these characters and what they're doing. Like there will be moments where a character does something bad and he'll be like, oh, that was a nasty thing for that character to do. And it's not necessarily like he's breaking away from the story to be like, guys, this is bad, but like it's still in the context of the story and of the narration.
Interesting. Cool. The next one we have is called Done. And the description here says, an arrogant and manipulative hunter. So again, I'm just going to write a little quick note on the board here about this, but why is Done important to this story, or what was your inspiration for Done?
Well, there was a lot of thought that went into Done. Some I found to be quite profound, and other times just silly ideas. But first and foremost, why is he named Done? Because it rhymes with gun.
Hey, I love that so much.
Originally, because we'll get into characters later, but they don't necessarily have names. They're more kind of their animal types. But when kind of writing it, I kind of was like, well, write something about his gun. It was like, oh, what's a rhyme I can use? Well, I guess Done just works. But
awesome. I love the simplicity in that. I love it.
Yeah, sometimes I always like finding the complex ideas in that, but I think sometimes it can just be as simple as, yeah, I like this. So like that can be fun. Now, on the surface level of Done, if I had to describe what character influenced me the most when writing him, this is going to sound very strange, but just thinks he's just such this brilliant mind, but he's also a big schemer, and nothing can ever just be as simple as just going and doing something. It always has to be this big plan, almost to prove to himself of his own intelligence. And then, you know, as it gets into the story later, we find that that intelligence might not all be quite there, and that he can be easily pushed and easily manipulated back.
Interesting.
So just kind of a surface level, when I was thinking about writing his dialogue, that sort of passed over, but there's a bit more to talk about.
That is an interesting little skill he's got there.
Yeah.
And then, so you also created this artwork, and do you mind speaking a little bit to how you created this?
I created the artwork in a sense because I know this is a hot topic in the art world right now. And,
for sure.
I won't lie that I have kind of my own, you know, thoughts about it, but all these pictures we'll show you here, these were AI art generated, and I always kind of feel sort of weird about doing stuff like that because it's like, well, it's not good in the art world, but then on the other side, like, I simply don't have the time to do drawings like this. What's kind of their size, and especially when you have characters that are this sort of outside the realm that we usually think of them. It kind of helps put the image in my head of like how would it look in like a real setting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like trying to remind yourself of that while you're writing. So yeah, and use the tools at your disposal, I guess. So
and with that said, like we talk about AI being kind of a hot topic. It did a really good job. Like
these are incredible.
Yeah, I love these pictures. Like I just put in like mouse who's covered in green slime, and this is exactly what I was looking for, and it particularly gave it like the sketchiness and that.
Fitted with a metal claw. I love it. Awesome. And yeah, so again, why a bear? What was your inspiration for the bear? Why the metal claw?
Okay, so when this piece initially started, it was mostly about the fox, who we'll get to a little later, but when I kind of started to think about the idea of adapting into stage, I kind of had to like expand on a lot of it because initially it was going to be the fox, and there could have been content to that, but maybe not enough to fill out a show. So then it got to be the idea of, well, how can I expand on these ideas? And I think especially when thinking about it as a performance piece, I got to thinking about like how distinctly different animals can be, and size, and how actors can play into different size and like volume, and creating distinct identities for distinctly different animals. So to kind of break it all down, it sort of became, well, let's have an animal who's small, an animal who's medium, and an animal who's large. And then I kind of just started snowballing a few ideas, and just it was important to me because the central theme of this piece is on identity and the various forms it can take, and the various problems that can arise with that. And so each of the animals here kind of represents a different, was born without a paw, and to kind of go into, like to have sort of a disabled identity on stage. And then, fox with the rainbow tail, we obviously associate that with LGBTQ. And then going back to mouse again, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
There's not really too deep an identity to that, but then after a while I did kind of get to thinking, well, maybe he's just a form of identity that like outside people don't always understand, but it's something that like he's very happy and comfortable with, and that we need to learn to be okay with that.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And one of the juxtapositions I see in bear, I know that you had mentioned one specific, but it's this idea of, in the description you say lonely and sensitive, whereas metal claw, right, and even with the visual, it's very sharp and it looks very aggressive, right? And so I think there's a juxtaposition there for me that I see in it. So that's awesome. And you had talked briefly about fox, so for sure, let's move on to fox here. So a cunning and sly fox born with a rainbow-colored tail. So again, what was your kind of inspiration? And I know you talked to it briefly already, so maybe this will be a bit shorter, but what was your inspiration? Why the fox?
I guess the idea sort of began because I'm always interested in exploring provocative themes in my work, and I kind of, and especially provocative themes that you can tie into an audience who's maybe not often exposed to them, like children, and these can be very important lessons as they're sort of starting to develop their own identities, and it kind of just began, and it sort of, it sounds kind of simple, but it was, what sounds like a children's book? Like, what's something you could easily see on a shelf? And that kind of just became experimenting with ideas, and eventually I just kind of thought, the fox with the rainbow tail, that sounds like a children's book. That sounds like something you could see. And so then once I had that title, it kind of just became exploring about, well, what is the journey that the fox goes on? And interestingly enough, the journey I had Fox starting on when the piece started is not the one she goes on in the piece now. Because I would say Mouse and Bear kind of take over what her initial role was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, and then she's kind of more the emotional support, and
Interesting.
at the end, she's kind of the one who stands up for Mouse and Bear.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome to hear that. Yeah, like one of the characters sounds like went on fictional from your imagination.
Primarily fictional.
Yeah.
I sort of kind of figured the kind of specific theme I wanted each character, and kind of worked on their personality and kind of what their dialogue would look like. And I wouldn't say, no, not necessarily that anyone in particular inspired that.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. Awesome. And then our setting is very fitting. A forest nearing the end of winter. Very specific details. So I'm going to write forest on the board. And again, why forest? Why near the end of winter?
Well, I suppose again it was sort of it was the idea of like the fable or the fairy tale, and you know how often we think of the forest setting, and a forest can be a very mysterious place, and we don't always know kind of what lies within it. And I wanted the idea to be like it's a place we can see existing on our world, but it has qualities of it that make it otherworldly. Like it's recognizable, but you know, animals aren't, you know, covered in green slime, and you know, they don't talk to each other. So it felt like a very familiar setting to put it in for a children's piece. And then near the end of winter came up. Initially, I wanted to set it in fall, but I felt like, particularly because it's winter now, I felt like I had the opportunity to go outside and think more about the feelings of winter and the sounds of winter and the smells of winter. And I felt like I had more of a concrete environment where I could think about how to describe this world. And there's sections of it that just kind of describe what the world is, and tries to elicit the things we think about when we're outside in winter. So it was mostly just kind of a convenience thing, but I think it also does add to the environment of the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I think we will dive into reading some of the story out loud here. I know I got to take a sip of water, and then I might actually tape these up on the board. But while I'm doing that, I think if you want to dive into the narrator, and we'll just kind of read this first bit up until the end of this first page here, and then we will stop and pause.
Okay, so here we go. This is a story of animals three, from a forest not far from sapphire sea. The animals three familiar they seem, yet each of them something right out of a dream. The first of the three, a mouse bright and tiny, and covered in something light green and slimy. The second he be, a fox quick and sly, with a tail that's colored an unusual dye. The final of three, the biggest is he, a bear with a paw that makes everyone flee. These are our animals, and this the prelude. Now let's enter the forest to establish the mood. It was a cold winter day, and the forest now white, and the sun on the snow was visibly bright. The leaves on the trees had all but few fell. The air of the forest a crisp and clean smell. The river run through had frozen to ice. The animals' thirst pay a terrible price. With conditions so harsh and food growing low, the animals attuned to the season of snow. The fowl of the forest had left to migrate, for north in the winter was something they hate. The serpents as well went under the ground, waiting for spring till they can be found. But some must instead brave the harsh, chilling cold, so into warm shelters they now must take hold. With young mouths to feed, and they themselves too, they emerge in the open for something to chew. This time of day when the animals roam is when hunters come in from out of their homes. And who is this here while the sun starts to dim? Well, let's quiet on down, and we'll listen to him.
Wow, I love that. One of the first things that come to mind, and so descriptive. I love that. Yeah.
Now, it is something, because that is kind of the part about the butting heads of poetry and theater, because theater, you have the advantage of visual storytelling. So it's how can I create this atmosphere and evoke these feelings, but not feel like over-explaining, and that I'm not allowing the visuals the chance to also represent those worlds.
Yeah, and the rhythm really adds a unique element to it, you know, like and it really does have that kind of like TYA or theater for young audiences. I don't know why, but it does really capture that so well. That's really awesome. Did you have anything to add about this first narrator bit, or should we jump into the next bit? It's going to be done.
Oh, I think we're good to move on.
Cool. And then, yes, I set up this back here a little bit, and then, yeah, we can jump back to that if you have any thoughts whenever. Can I read done?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I just thought of one thing I'll
Yeah.
add before we get to done.
Yeah.
Now, the reason done doesn't have a picture on the wall is because often when I find I'm writing human characters, I find it's easier to envision myself in the shoes. So I kind of put myself in this image of being in this forest and wearing this hunter garb, and I think that kind of puts me in the place of what Dunn is going through, where the animals, there's something a bit more, you know, you got to think outside the box, and they have these uniquities that, you know, you kind of need like to see or to help visualize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the narrator? Does the narrator have a physical form, or are they this kind of ethereal voice throughout?
I've kind of been playing with both ideas. I haven't decided on one.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards ethereal, but I guess when the piece is done, we'll just have to see.
We'll have to see how it develops. Absolutely. Awesome. And are you okay with me reading done?
Yeah, go right on ahead.
Okie dokie. Cool. Good to meet you. I'm a hunter named Dunn. That you could tell from my bow and my gun. And from a family of hunters, all will agree, the greatest of men to come before me. Using 3 animals to open the door. The first of the 3 should be pretty fun. A little gray mouse done in by my gun. The second of them, a little more tough. A massive brown bear could end up quite rough. The final of 3 is the one that's most hard, a sly orange fox, almost always on guard. If I bring them all in before the first dew of spring, I'll be made a true hunter and my name will ring. But the condition they felt, they had to insist, the animals be perfect, right down to their wrist. Not a blemish or feature or tooth out of place. Anything less would be hunter's disgrace. But I am not worried, not one single bit. I'll take them all down with my gun and my wit. Hurry I should, for down comes the sun. By this time tomorrow, Dunn will have won. I love it. I love it. I love it. It adds so much, it really does bring the character to life. And I see what you're saying about this kind of naive, intelligent, coming of age, or it's like you have to, a rite of passage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's kind of what it seems like Dunn has to achieve as well during this story. And so it really does kind of set that up nicely. So is there anything you want to add to this first bit of Dunn, or should we move on?
Yeah, I guess just to kind of go into a bit of Dunn, what was interesting about writing him was because the characters represent a spectrum of learned identity, and so I'll actually go to the board here. Where's the, just borrow your marker?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll call this the spectrum of learned identity.
Yeah.
So on one extreme, we have Dunn. On the other extreme, we have fox. And then right somewhere in the middle are bear and mouse.
Yeah.
So now, in the sense of learned identity, fox is somebody who has sort of all but avoided this sort of learned identity. They're comfortable with who they are. They love being the side of themselves, where when it gets more to bear and mouse, they're comfortable with themselves, but they're also still a little naive, and they don't quite know what they want. They appreciate themselves for who they are, but they also want this sense of belonging. And as the piece kind of evolves, we see Dunn sort of influence who they are and gets them to change who they are because of what he wants to be. And that all ties to the idea of identity. And this wasn't something that was planned when I started writing this, but I think especially in this time now with Alberta's policies now with transgender identities, this is a very important lesson for children to know. And when we get to the other extreme, Dunn, he's somebody who has completely abandoned himself to be what somebody wanted him to be. And we'll get to this next narrator bit kind of starts to hint at what his story is and what he wanted to be, and then the sense that he got pressured and just got pushed down to avoid being that he eventually lost himself, and now kind of this hunter persona is what he is. And that was sort of an interesting challenge when it got to writing him, because it was
as well.
Fox is already here, and it's the journey of how does everybody else get here to this point of comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add a title to your lovely illustration there, but I think if you wanted to dive into narrator,
Sure thing.
that would be awesome.
All right.
And then that might be the end of our time there.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to do that, I'll be right back.
Dunn took a small step in the fresh winter snow and into the forest with his gun of ammo. What Dunn said was true. He'd never been hunting, spending his childhood with a ball he liked punting. His father had told him in frivolous sneer, "You need to be hunting, it's the season for deer." Dunn never forgot what his father had said and vowed he'd grow up to kill animals dead. Dunn tried to move fast, but quiet as well. Animals listening would certainly not dwell. The sound of crunch soft and slow in the snow. As his feet hit the ground and forward he'd go. Suddenly Dunn stood perfectly still, with his face turned red from the cold winter chill. Dunn heard a sound, a sharp sort of squeak, sounding as though it came up near the creek. Dunn smiled to himself, knowing that was no bees, the squeak of a mouse in this forest of trees. Then peered into the scope of his long slender gun, to find the mouse whose days were surely now done. He looked for a mouse that was gray and was small, and no doubt the source of the high-pitching call. He peered and he peered, his eyes were not blinking. Where is the mouse? All he was thinking. Dunn suddenly stopped as his grin fell aback. He saw a small figure who was eating a snack. The sound Dunn had heard was a mouse indeed, but Dunn had never seen a mouse of this breed. It had whiskers and paws, which was certainly expected, but something else too that made Dunn feel dejected. The mouse had been covered in a layer of slime. The color was bright like that of a lime. From his head to his tail a soft slippery ooze. Dunn now unsure if he was having a snooze. The mouse of green slime stood eating a berry, while Dunn stood upset, not feeling much merry.
I love that. And so yeah, here you kind of have the narrator describing Dunn coming across the first of his animals that he must hunt, I guess, in order to be accepted into the club of his family. Great. And I really love, when we were kind of talking about this idea before the interview.
Oh, yeah.
I forget the name of them.
Yeah.
Fairies.
Oh, yeah.
Fairies. Kind of like making people fall asleep and doing all sorts of mischief. And yeah, there's a very mischievous element to it. And I really love that. Is there any last thoughts that you want to add to this? I know we didn't get like super far into the story, but I really do appreciate you kind of sharing your insight into it, which has been incredibly exciting to learn about. But yeah, any last thoughts about this or kind of overall? It's okay if not. We could even just look back here, like the theme, it focuses around identity. We have our characters here, and I loved your note about you kind of see yourself taking on the more human-esque roles, but then, these needed a bit more of a visual because of their specific elements. And then I love this spectrum of learned identity that you talked about between Dunn and Fox, and then the people in the middle are maybe a bit more subject to like peer pressure or outside influence. I think this is a phenomenal little story. And like you said, like very timely. So Yeah, anything else that you want to add before we wrap up this segment?
I think for this part, I'm very pleased with what we were able to cover, and yeah, I think that's a good place to move on.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, be it on the live stream or otherwise.
Further into the story that you were here to share with us. Perry had a really great job just kind of setting us up with the spectrum of learned identity, naive intelligence, and all these things that are really like, well, that are very thought through and kind of deliver the purpose of the story as well too. I'm really excited to kind of dive into a little bit more of the characters and what we just discussed before being resonance as well.
Yeah.
So I think first things first, we kind of preluded a little bit of the beginning with the narrator and the character Dunn as well, but I think we just jumped ahead to talk about the character of Mouse as well. So just before we kind of like go into this character as well, what do you like kind of visualize when it comes to this type of character? And when it comes to staged or anything, is there any kind of contrast between Dunn and Mouse? And what can you speak towards that?
Right. Well, as I had kind of mentioned in the previous part, a big part of developing these type of characters was having such different like body shapes and these different like voices we kind of imagine with these types of animals, and especially thinking about it as a script, I was particularly appealed to the idea of resonance and where were these voices coming from, and these are voices we can very clearly distinct with certain resonance. You know, you think a mouse, it's very tiny, very meek, and it's got sort of a higher pitch to it, and you know, you get into fox and it's more like a medium tone, and it's confidence, and then you get into bear, and bear is big, and it's got this huge body language, and you just imagine, you know, that roar, that deep roar, and it just coming from a very deep place.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first character we're probably going to be preluding here as well too is going to be Mouse. So when it comes to the Mouse character, we agree that it's probably a higher pitch, but like, is there anything? How do we get to that higher pitch for people who haven't played with resonance before?
Right. Well, a lot of it is up in your nose. If you can, you know, with resonance, you often talk with like instruments. So, you know, like when you're talking up here, you know, it's like a violin. Ooh, it's like a violin.
All the way up in the nose as well, right? Okay. And, it helps with the face. It helps. I feel a little silly about
getting up in your body, like, oh, violin.
Oh, violin. Okay. Very interesting.
And then, you know, kind of the lower you go, you know, the lower you attribute with instruments, like, so more like a kind of in here, more kind of the throat or upper chest.
Okay.
That's like a viola. It's kind of this light sound.
And stretching out those vocal cords as well, allowing you to fill the space. Okay.
And then you gradually get deeper, and then when you go all the way to your bottom, right down your gut, that's like a bass. That's a bass.
Oh.
You know, you think very heavy.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put it in your body.
Ooh.
So
double bass. I'm a bear.
I'm the bear.
Yeah. So you kind of imagine, it's like imagining where that breath, where that voice is coming from. So you can raise it up. You can raise it up nice and high and up into the nose and into the face, and it can kind of help if you throw in a little bit of a face as well too, and then as you find yourself, you can kind of, the breath is coming from down below.
Yeah.
So I hope that the mic kind of picked that up as well too. No, okay, yeah.
Well, and it really helps to sort of open up that air passage down to sort of your stomach into this area, because then you can sort of easily access all the other ones, because it's pretty easy when you're up here, and it gets more difficult if you don't have quite the open airspace to get that deep.
Okay, so what are your thoughts? So we have like a high resonance, we got like a super low resonance as well too, and most people can kind of just like put two and two together. What do we imagine as Mouse is going to be our first character kind of up? What are you imagining at first like the resonance should be? We can play with super high, and I think we should, but like, Do you think low resonance would really work for context of this character? Would like a medium or something like that?
It would be interesting to experiment with, for sure. I could see playing around with the idea of a more medium resonance, and not necessarily that they have to follow in the conventions of how we think of resonance.
Okay, sweet. Sounds good. So we'll probably start it off with high, and I heard medium as well too. So maybe we try that.
Yeah, we can experiment.
Leading into the text of Mouse. I think that would probably work.
Yeah.
Just fine.
I'll take on Done if you want to take on Mouse. Would you?
I'm okay with that.
Lovely.
That sounds good with me.
All right. So, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Mouse. You enjoying your berry? That should be plenty for a stomach to carry. I was out for a walk and saw your green slime, and wonder how you got to be covered in grime.
Hello, Mr. Man. Now there's a story to tell. Come in a little closer, so I need not to yell. I was born with glands that only make slime. Instead of some sweet, I have slime for all time. Sweat.
Oh, my bad.
Instead of some sweat, I have slime for all time. But do not feel sad for my current condition, for I have grown to love my lime green emission. It helps me climb trees all the way to the top. I stick to the tree, unafraid I will drop. If a predator is near and looking to feed, I can stick them to slime and leave before freed. The slime too is heated and keeps me all warm, which is perfect for cold winter days in a storm. The other mice find me to be different and odd. A mice quite like me has never entered their squad. They try to be kind and act with great care, but I can't help notice how often they glare. But I often come to love me for all that I am, and I assure you, dear man, this is far from a scam.
Okay, so we'll pause there.
All right, all right.
Yeah, so it's interesting to hear it out loud in this context.
Actually aloud, right?
Yeah.
Right. So have you ever played?
Make sure it sounds, rhythm sounds good, but also to kind of hear it in its context. But to hear it from an outside perspective, and
I love that.
Yeah, I could definitely see. I could see it even going higher.
Even higher.
Yeah,
Okay.
Even higher.
Okay.
Because, and again, I think a lot of, again, kind of going back to the ideas or the personifications we sort of think of these animals. We think of mice, and we think of them as being very meek and very keeping to themselves. So I could imagine almost like a quietness to mouse, or maybe even like a shyness to mouse. Like it doesn't quite know how to put himself out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really like that idea, and you of course hold a lot of the context of the characters. So would you be okay of just doing the same like text, but just reverse the roles here?
Sure thing.
I can lead you in as character Done.
That sounds good.
Okay. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. All right. Hello, Mr. Mouse. Do you enjoying your berry? That should be plenty for a stomach to carry. I was out for a walk and saw your green slime, and wondered how you got to be covered in grime.
Oh, hello, Mr. Man. Now there's a story to tell. Come a little closer, so need I not yell. I was born with glands that only make slime. Instead of some sweat, I have slime for all time. But do not feel sad for my current condition, for I have grown to love my lime green emission. It helps me climb trees all the way to the top. I stick to the tree, unafraid I will drop. If a predator is near and looking to feed, I can stick them to slime and leave before freed. And the slime too is heated and keeps me all warm, which is perfect for cold winter days in a storm. The other mice find me to be different and odd. A mouse quite like me has never entered their squad. They try to be kind and act with great care, but I can't help but notice how often they glare. But I've come to love me for all that I am, and I assure you, dear man, this is far from a scam.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I can really see what you were saying. A little bit more quiet, a little bit more Like you even started to physicalize it as well
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Kind of like with resonance, it kind of helped with the face.
Oh, absolutely.
Super. Hi.
But I guess one thing, an idea I had for this, but it would kind of depend on how it's used and how it's created, was an initial idea I had was all the animals be played by one actor.
Oh.
Which would be difficult to do on stage, especially when we get later on and the animals are interacting off of each other.
Right.
But I was really sort of attracted to that idea of one actor being able to explore all those different, body types and different resonances.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a fascinating challenge, and it really gives a horizon of an
Yeah.
actor to play around and kind of discover how these characters sort of separate from each other.
Yeah, and you're going to have the chance real quick to find out where exactly the resonance is going to sit amongst each of these characters. Well, I really enjoyed Mouse there. That is a very interesting, hopefully done like sees mercy in his eyes right now as well too. But let's jump ahead and try to find a spot with either Fox or the bear as well too. I kind of want to play around with some other resonance as well.
Yeah, we'll go into bear because Fox doesn't come in till near the end. So do you want to try bear first, or?
I'm okay with either. Let's have myself do bear
Yeah.
first. I'll try to do some physicalizations like I saw you do for taking on Mouse. I think to start, I'll try with a very low resonance
Yeah.
as well. That should work. And I might have to stand for this one. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely.
I want to really get into this. So okay, right
All
on.
right. You good to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. So this is done. Speaking first. Hello, Mr. Bear. I am sorry to scare. I promise I'm here as I simply do care. I wandered these woods and your paw caught my eye. A missing brown paw made me feel I could cry. The bear scanned the man and saw how he sweat, and thought to no reason why he was a threat.
Hello, Mr. Man. Why, yes, that is me. My metal-based claw makes the animals flee. I was born in a zoo without my fourth paw. The humans described it as a rare sort of flaw. For most of my life, I could never walk right. Just standing up straight was always a fight. Then one day, a man who helps amputees built me a paw to walk with more ease. It helped me so much. It has helped me a lot. It has helped live longer than others had thought. Only 1 week ago, the zoo set me free. No longer the money to take care of me. Since then, I've lived here all out on my own, with no other bears having yet to be shown. I think they're all scared of my paw made of metal. Without no other friends, it's been lonely to settle.
Great.
Okay. That was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
That's I really felt that kind of drop low as well too. I kind of maybe have tripped up here and there as well too. But what are your thoughts?
Sophisticate, I don't know if that's quite the right word, but
Yeah. Okay.
Growing up in this zoo, he sort of kind of learned to adapt to sort of the human sensibility
Right.
and the human response to animals. So there's almost this sense of comfort when he's with Dunn, and it's also, I think, good to have sort of in almost contrast to the bear, because the bear is such this big, threatening image. This big metal claw.
that
and,
looks like evil almost, right?
Yeah,
like
and
aggressive.
particularly setting it up with the narrator and Dunn is he's really scared to approach this bear. He's like, this bear any second could take me down. And I really like how you approached it. Like, the bear looks scary, but he's friendly.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of lonely, and he likes that he has someone to talk to. And that low resonance, I think, really works with this character, because it's just this big figure, and just has this deep voice that really fits with the body type.
Right. Okay. Sweet. Do you want to try just swapping the roles here real quick? Do you want to see if there's anything else that you can kind of add to that resonance?
Yeah,
of the
that sounds
character?
good. I am gonna stand.
Yeah. It really helped me. Okay. Perfect. All right. This is character done. Hello, Mr. Bear. I am sorry to scare. I promise I'm here as simply do care. I wandered these woods, and your paw caught my eye. A missing brown paw made me feel I could cry. The bear scanned the man and saw how he sweat, and thought to no reason why he was a threat.
Hello, Mr. Man. Why, yes, that is me. My metal-based claw makes the animals flee. I was born in a zoo without my fourth paw, and the humans described it as a rare sort of flaw. For most of my life, I could never walk right. Just standing up straight was always a fight. Then one day a man who helps amputees built me a paw to walk with more ease. It has helped me so much, it has helped me a lot. It has helped me live longer than others had thought. Only 1 week ago the zoo set me free, no longer the money to take care of me.
More labored, it sounded, than mine kind of sounded like a little bit relaxed. And I think that was really cool because it adds like more of a tension. It kind of adds a reason to kind of like for Dunn to be a little bit afraid as well too, because that labored feeling, especially with such a massive creature, to me thinks that it could be any second. I gotta still be careful because it could tick, it could talk, and it could blow up in my face. That was really cool. I really appreciate kind of the intro to this character because it just explains out the story and kind of just sets up. So further down the lines, it looks like Dunn here. So does he complete the hunt?
No, so going back to this idea that he's this schemer, it's the idea that he needs these animals to be a certain way, and it can't just be as easy as just going up and shooting them. So he comes up with all these little plans to like trick the animals into looking in a way, the way that he feels these animals are supposed to look, like the ideal bear and such. So he comes up, for bear specifically, he comes up with this scheme that he has these like slippers that resemble like bear paws. And he thinks, I'll take the iron one off and I'll slip this on and it'll look just like a real bear's paw. And like I can convince the hunters that this is how it is. And as we kind of see with bear, like it doesn't work for him because that slipper, it can't hold his weight. He can't stand up. But at the same time, he's so desperate to want to feel like he can belong and like that other bears don't have to be afraid of this metal claw, that he's literally dragging himself throughout the forest with this slipper on, just convinced that this is what he needs to be doing.
No, I find that's very powerful as well too. So Dunn is trying to like essentially find the creatures and have them set in the way that the expectation that I guess either, and you can take this outside and call it like society is putting them in a box or something like that. Whereas it's more complicated than that. There's more external factors that are kind of at play. So no, I find that very interesting, and I love seeing that bear come to life as well too. It makes me super excited to get and dive a little bit deeper into our third character, which is the fox as well. So let's see if we can kind of flip off to a slide that's got the fox introduction as well. Excellent. It looks like narrator has like 2 pages worth of dialogue. So I think
I'll probably have to split that up a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. But I think we'll probably just like do the lead up into the character as well too. So when it comes to Fox in particular, what are your thoughts when it comes to Fox, when it comes to resonance and like the delivery of the voice? Like where does that come from?
Yeah, so kind of like I'm saying, you know, mouse is tiny, bear is big. They're going to have the resonances that we attribute with them, and fox I see more as having sort of a mid resonance, kind of more like natural speech.
Yeah, so a mid resonance and like, so like their spectrum of learned identity, they already seem to kind of be at the far end. They kind of have like an aura of understanding about them. They know where they fit. So we have a medium resonance, but does that spectrum of identity placement, does that inform anything as well?
Oh, absolutely, because I would say fox is sort of meant to be this forest's like wisest creature, and the qualities we think of a fox, they're so sly and they're so quick. They know, and they can hunt at night. So very much, I think that would influence how fox would talk. It has this experience and this sense of age to it, and sort of this wiseness and sort of a calmness almost, because it has this feeling like I'm not intimidated by anything because I'm this quick hunter. It's almost kind of a parallel in Dun in a sense, but where Dun has sort of naive intelligence, fox has more of like a what's the word?
It's like an understanding, a wisdom,
like a comfortable intelligence.
Yeah. Like an understanding as well.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
No, I seem to pick that up, and it's like the complete contrast of Dun, but it's like what is it? It's like Batman and Joker, where Joker always says, "You're just like me," or something like that. The villain is always like antagonizing the hero by being like, "You're exactly like me," or something like that. Anyways. No, I really appreciate kind of drawing those lines. That is a concise thought, and well, I look forward to that. So that's good. Should we dive right into it as well?
Yeah. So I guess we'll just set up a little bit of context just so people have an idea of where this is going.
Yeah,
At this point, Dun has tricked the mouse into getting rid of its slime and has tricked the bear into wearing this fake paw, and he's gone home for the conversation they have off of that.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I think let's stick with the convention. I'll try fox first, if that's okay, and then I think you'll do a better job. Come up next. No,
Brent, you're great.
Oh, that's good. Okay, perfect. Where do you want to pick up? Should we just dive right into fox, or?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, sweet. All right, so we have the medium resonance, which is I would like to describe as typically a normal speaking volume and voice. All right, let's just dive right in. Forgive me, dear mouse. I need you to chime. Are you the small mouse who gives off green slime? I feel that is you. That fact I am sure. And if it be you, your life is secure. You don't seem yourself. It is rather strange. What happened to you to cause such a change?
Great.
Interesting. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, like that definitely really comes across as more of an understanding, a calmness, and I mean, like, foxes to me includes that confidence as well still, that even though you might be in kind of like a lesser position, you're still totally fine. I've been still playing around with that power.
Yeah.
So
it's a sense of relatedness, because fox has this own sense of personal identity that's so different from the other foxes that when she sees another animal who's kind of similar, she has an understanding of them, and it sees that as almost a tragedy that they're not the way that they're supposed to be.
Okay, perfect. And it looks like they have a more of a conversation as well too. But let's see if there's any other thoughts or any information that you can take from my delivery there, and see what comes out if you go ahead and try to deliver it.
All right. Forgive me, dear mouse. I need you to chime. Are you the small mouse who gives off the green slime? I feel that is you, that fact I am sure. And if it be you, your life is secure. You don't seem yourself. It is rather strange. What happened to you to cause such a change?
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's very smooth as well. It's very nice. Very nice.
I don't know if I ever said this, but mouse is a male. The animals of the forest, but in how it influences character. I kind of see the fox. It has this medium resonance.
Yeah,
I'm slipping over my words, but
all good.
It's also kind of soft, and it has this sort of almost elegance that we kind of think with. I'd almost compare it to maybe like an older woman, like someone who's had years of experience and. How they interact with stuff. It's very soft and kind of caring.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like, well, especially with this line, can certainly read across like that as well too, being, being concerned for the mouse, being like, yeah, hey, buddy, you don't look yourself. What's going on? So.
But it's also important to still remind that it's a fox, and it wouldn't have hesitated to eat this mouse if it were any other mouse.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so this development kind of like furthers, I'm sure. Do we have any like lines where Fox and Dunn are speaking to one another?
We're not quite at that point yet. That is
Okay.
that will be the climax, which is the next thing I need to write, and that's sort of how Fox sort of like gives Dunn his own medicine. in a
Yeah.
sense.
Well, I'd really like to see just maybe some text from Fox, and then maybe if we have another one of us flip to a page where Dunn has some text as well too, and seeing if we can.
Okay, I'll use this bit for Dunn.
Okay, so you'll do Dunn, and then I can try to do Fox here. I think I'll stick to the same line. Yeah, I'll stick to the same line.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's give us what you got.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This is the newest in paw-based outfitting. Compared to real life, the resemblance is spitting. We'll take off the metal and slip on this one. It works just the same as to help you to run. You'll feel like a bear, like all the rest. One day in this, and you will feel blessed.
Forgive me, dear mouse. I need you to chime. Are you the small mouse who gives off green slime? I feel that is you, that fact I am sure. And if it be you, your life is secure. You don't seem yourself. It is rather strange. What happened to you to cause such a change? Cool. What are some of the differences do you think in delivery between the characters?
Well, one that kind of picked up on is Dunn has more of like a head-forward goal. Like he has something that a direction he
Very
needs
direct,
to get to.
yeah.
Where Fox is kind of more reserved and adopts like their goal kind of out of kindness. They don't necessarily have like an ultimate arc.
They don't have an agenda.
Yeah, and
right? Yeah.
so I imagine a bit more push with Dunn, like like he's got to get these animals. So, but he's also trying to seem reserved. Like he's not trying to let on that he has this goal and that he's trying to get these animals. Where because Fox is such at peace with herself and isn't quite as concerned about these type of things, it gives her the opportunity to be a bit more soft and reserved and to be able to just speak more to these animals like fellow animals instead of just something they need to win.
That's very interesting, and I really appreciate as well too that there is such like a dichotomy when it comes to each of these characters. They each have their strengths, and they each have their differences that make them so complementary inside the story. That is so much just like head thought in the preparation for the writing in this prose. I super appreciate how it rhymes as well too, and I think the implications for like a TYA story. So I think the only question I have, because this will be the last like concluding part for at least the prose section, we'll be getting into cinema critique here pretty soon. But it's so cruel of me to ask for an ETA as to when this will be completed.
Oh, okay,
but for you, when do you see this process being complete?
Well, this piece will get put on temporary pause. The goal was to originally have it ready for today, but life happens.
Yeah.
You just can't quite get there. So I definitely want to finish it though.
Yeah.
I love this piece and I really want to see it through to the end. So I'll spend about a week, maybe a week and a half, just kind of sorting some other things, and then immediately pick this back up again, spend a few days on it, and maybe hopefully end of February, early March, we can see it. The whole thing's going to be uploaded to my website. You can read it for free if you're interested.
Sounds good. We'll be watching out for that. All right, folks, thank you so much. We're going to take a brief break as well as we set up for cinema critique. Hello and welcome again, once again, everybody, to the Windy City's finest. I'm Clark.
I'm Perry.
And we're joined once again by...
I'm Mason.
Perfect. Thank you again, Mason. You have already during this entire feature like shared so much great knowledge and wisdom with us as well too. And we're diving into the last part of the feature here. This one being cinema critique. Now I got a couple questions just kind of leading into what we're about to watch. But first things first, like to you, what is cinema critique, or what exactly do you look for when watching cinema?
Well, especially as an artist, I think conferring with other art, it gives me a chance to really think about why something works in one context and doesn't work in another. And I often kind of think of cinema critique in sort of two senses, because there's the technical sense, but then there's also the emotional sense. And you know, when you're thinking of the technical sense, you're thinking of editing, lighting, sound, all those things, and kind of the quality in which it's done. But then emotional allows a chance for more of a personal, like why it makes you feel the feelings you did, or why did it fail to make you feel the feelings that it did. And that can be very important to influence your own work, and often to kind of get you thinking about what it is the art that you love and why you love it.
So for you specifically, it's more about like what, like maybe the lighting makes you feel a certain way, and having like, am I kind of capturing like what your thought process
is? Purely subjective. That's the big part of it. Like, you can't critique something and then pronounce it, this is fact, this is how it is. So it all comes down to opinion, but that can be very important to influence other people too. Like just telling them why something you felt it didn't work, because that can.
I'm like, for what we have prepared for the for our viewers here is that we have actually a work that you did yourself. Can you give us a little bit of information on like what inspired this piece? What was the reasoning behind it as well too, before we dive in?
Yeah, absolutely. So this piece was part of my Device 2 audition. When I was in university, it gave me this emotional resonance, and it got me kind of thinking, what's the story behind this song? And this idea of lost love, and naturally I just started to snowball all these ideas for it. And it's an interesting piece, because it almost 90% of it was done in a span of 24 hours.
Okay, wow.
So which fitted time span, and yeah, I was so pleased with the ideas that developed of it, and it remains one of my personal favorite pieces I've done.
Yeah, now it's a bit abstract. I know, just to kind of preface that. We do have a couple other videos that we might have, if we have time, get a chance to review as well too. You might see Clark and Perry in our
in our element.
Yeah, in our element. That's a way to put it. So okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate that that prelude context to what we're about to see. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So for our viewers as well too, for extra context, we're probably going to pause, like stop this, but you can check this up on YouTube as well too, so you can check it out on your own time as well. All right, let's go ahead and let's start what we have.
Well, I'm even going to preliminary
Excellent.
toss it right off the bat. So this actually isn't the original version I made and submitted, and that's because when we're working with TELUS, there's a lot of things we can't show. So this is actually a recent re-edit that takes out any risk of copyrighted material that could potentially be bad. And I think it's not the original piece, but I think the changes still stay to the original tone and ideas of the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. Yeah, so the re-edit is just to conform to the broadcasting standards as well too. It's not like there wasn't any
Adapt a piece of footage, right? And that goes back to the whole conversation around playwriting of like, when is a project done? But it might not be done depending on where you're putting it, or who is presenting it, right? And the fact that you had to go back and make some re-edits when in theory it was done before. But yeah, no, that's super interesting. So thank you for stopping it right away.
Absolutely. Let's press on.
I'm gonna pause it.
Yeah,
and I just want to speak to, like, I'm wondering if you could speak to the use of landscape, and like, I don't know, because it feels like you're trying to set the scene, as it were, and I just see a parallel there between like the playwriting when the narrator is describing the forest that the story is going to unfold in, and is there anything you could speak to about using landscape shots and the time duration of them, and
It kind of worked in my favor that I filmed this around the time when winter was starting, because when we meet this character, he's in sort of this uneasy state, and his world feels cold and colors very muted, and it kind of worked perfectly. A lot of these outside shots I had gotten beforehand, it kind of fit and started to set the tone of this world that this guy lives in.
Okay, I can
No, so yeah, I really appreciate, I was going to say the clouded atmosphere really helps kind of like reinforce that as well too. And I mean, even the fact like checking out the trees, they don't have leaves on them as well too. It really kind of looks a little barren, almost.
An empty world.
Wilted, as it would be as well too. And that was one thing I kind of wanted to dive into, and I forgot to right before we started. Let's talk about the title as well too. What was the inspiration for that? Like you just kind of preluded it with the character as well too. But yeah, what can you share with us on that?
Okay, so one of the things I found I was interested in exploring with this piece, and it is the idea of language. And language is such an interesting tool to use in our art, especially when it's being used in a context where it's being presented to people who don't understand the language that's being spoken. And specifically for this piece, I had gone with Spanish, and that was very much inspired by the song we're going to hear later on, because that very much is rooted in Spanish origin. And so if you're wondering why it's called marchito (wilted), it's because marchito is the Spanish word for wilted.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll pause it here.
Excellent.
There's a lot to unpack in this opening scene here. So I don't know if my Spanish was all that good. The thing about it is, as I had mentioned earlier, most of this was done in 24 hours. So in that 24-hour period, it was written, it had to be translated, I had to learn how to say it phonetically, I had to record myself saying it. So, but I think that's also part of what interests me, tying back to the idea of language, and when we use it, who people who don't understand it is sort of a sense of honesty between the artist and the audience, that the audience just believes what he's saying is absolutely accurate, and that all this is Spanish that he actually learned when it was just something he very quickly translated and quickly heard the phonetic.
So just to kind of clarify that thought as well for me was that, so essentially like the interesting relationship between language that's being portrayed to an audience that may not, for example, understand. I think that's very unique actually, and a very important or interesting view on that as well too. That's, I'm going to let that thought kind of trail off for what that is. I think we got a little distracted with some people that were kind of checking us out. Hi there. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I guess let's just kind of dive. Oh, Perry's got a thought. Perry's got a thought.
Yes, no. I just wanted to touch on the transition in music and sound and scoring, and is there anything you can add about that transition? It sounded, because there was the scoring for being outside and setting that tone, and then it transitioned along with the dialogue here, and why? Or is there a specific reason, or just is that a transition?
I can't speak too much to this version of the opening music, because that was one of the changes that had to be made to accompany broadcasting. But Yeah, I think music is such an important part to atmosphere and tone, and I really wanted to give this melancholy but also soft tone, like
people, I think it impacts a movie or a scene or whatever more than people maybe give it credit for, I think. It's kind of one of those things that happens passively while you're watching, but while you're focused on the visuals, all of that is informing what you're watching. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right on. And where was this shot?
This was in my dorm room when I was living on Mount Blackiston at the University of Lethbridge.
Awesome.
All the outside shots were just the little park that's right outside Blackiston, and then the entire rest of the short is just me in this tiny little cubicle of a room.
Hey, you gotta shoot with what you got right now, right? And that's I mean, I think we're a testament to that as well too. We're gonna use anything that we have. Now, I really appreciate a lot of the lighting for me in particular. This is just something I'm reading into it. We don't need to justify it, but I really like how the light is just very angular on the one side, and it seems to be kind of in line with the head. I don't know if that suggests something, but for me, it speaks like this character is literally hit a wall. That's what I read into it. I might be reading too much, but I'll let that be what it is.
Yeah.
I'm excited to kind of dive into more. So
Yeah,
let's
keep going.
Un día, entregando mi madre, tocó las flores junto a llaves. Y ella me dijo, bueno, por no las encontramos hermosas,
Awesome. I'm gonna pause right there.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to touch on the use of Spanish. Do you have did you speak Spanish before, or was it brand new when you started to make this?
Brand new.
Okay.
Everything was written, translated, listened to phonetically, and then recorded in the span of like an hour.
Interesting.
Had I had more time,
Rose and wilting flowers, and that they had to die. I'm just curious, like, what the inspiration for that part of the story was for you. Like, is that true in your life? Like, did your mom get you flowers and stuff? Or how much is fiction, how much is not, you know?
Again, we'll kind of get into the song that was sort of the main inspiration of this piece, and the idea of, lost love, and how all the best things in our life are one day gone, so we should appreciate them while we have it. And I really fell in love with this idea of starting it out, telling a story that foreshadows when we go back into the past, and we see sort of what inspires this this mood and this telling of the story. And when I kind of think about who he's telling the story to, I think it's sort of telling it to himself. It's this attempt to reassure himself that it's okay.
I was about to say, it definitely reads right now as like an inner monologue. He's just kind of reviewing some thoughts in his head because of like some grief or some conflict that the character is currently going through right now.
Well, and actually the wilted rose, a lot of times I find good ideas can just, you can just kind of find them if you know where to look. Because, often we think of flowers, we think of love and a connection, and it happened that around this time I did another project, and all of us were given like a rose to hold for it, and then I just put it aside, didn't even think about it, and naturally it just wilted. And that was a big part of kind of what made me think about this like story, the idea that flowers wilt, but they're beautiful because we can appreciate them while they're still alive and very pretty.
And I remember my point now that I brought up about audience before we just got a little distracted, of course. But I remember, like watching this right now, you wouldn't assume like at least for me so far, you wouldn't assume that this was done in a 24-hour, like real quick turnaround type thing as well too. And that's what I think the audience like really experiences. It's that forced perspective, or like they don't get to see you sweat in this situation, right? Because you're doing the performance, and you had phonetically learned the script in Spanish in a span of an hour. Now, you know, people could dig into it as much as they want, but I think that itself holds a lot of value and can inform a lot of people in their future video practice or releases or something like that too. Anyways, just wanted to make that point.
And that's a big part of why I love this piece so much, because I'm normally such a perfectionist with my work. So the fact that I was able to put this together in 24 hours and that I was so pleased with it, I'm just feel proud of it.
My question is, what does the bareback represent for me? Because for me, that's one thing that I really like to kind of think about and assess. Is it just kind of like reveal an openness of the character, or a vulnerability is typically where people go with it? But I'm kind of wondering what you folks think as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's vulnerability, but it's also to build up, because you can kind of see in some of these shots that he's got this white strap, and it's kind of building, well, what's the white strap about? And so we often kind of look behind him, and when we get into it later on, he'll finally turn around and confront the quote-unquote audience.
And something I want to kind of point for our viewers as well too is that I've noticed that the breathing is quite like, it's very physicalized as well too, I've seen. So I'm interested to see what we can garner off of that.
And just to add to that, I really like your point about this idea of, it speaks to vulnerability, but it could also speak to being closed off.
Which
I think is what you were saying, right? And so that idea of choosing when to engage with the audience.
And now the reveal.
Which I am going to pause because it's interesting, because it speaks to vulnerability and choosing that moment to engage, but then they have the mask on. So are they still are they engaging? Is my question. You know what I mean?
It's conflicting messages.
They're
You're giving me mixed signals.
No, but interesting. And what is the inspiration behind the mask?
So kind of like how I mentioned the rose, how, you know, you kind of just walk around and you get sort of inspirations. I was just walking around Michael's and I saw these white masks, and that got me thinking about the idea of how we often attribute white to this sense of like purity and cleanliness. Well, black is this more like damaged and darker place. And when it flashes back to the past and we see him with this white mask on, it really just sets up that contrast between how he was and how he is now. And the red blood tear, that kind of just came out just because I thought it was a really good visual, but I think that's also just, you know, you see that and you just think pain, like this is somebody who's hurting.
And so it's obviously not a reference to skin color, which was one of my first thoughts. But it isn't. It's kind of a reflection of inside, is what I thought I just heard you kind of speak to. Of being in a darker place in life and
not being in a darker skin.
Yes.
Sorry.
No.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry. I didn't even realize that you disappeared and then all of a sudden you popped back in. You were multitasking today. All right. Perfect. Well, yeah, let's dive further in. And that's the video, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'll speak a bit about this because the idea was the past and the present should contrast as much as possible so that they feel like such a different environment. And such an underrated part of you know, creating a shot is color. And I found color to be such an inspirational way to kind of make you feel this sense of warmth to the past. And we can see he's all dressed in white, so we can sense that this is a different time in his life where things were more put together. And then, of course, it's the aspect ratio is now vertical now.
Yeah, never underestimate the power of contrast as well too. I'm just going to rewind back just so that we can
Happiness. And
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at content.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and that's probably one of the baseline things to probably to watch and observe as well too. Is any time that there is like a stark contrast.
Yeah.
And especially in the vertical, horizontal versus vertical frame, absolutely.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. Was that intentional?
Absolutely.
Of course it was. Nice. Okay, that's really good.
Well, before we even get back into it,
Yeah.
I want to speak a bit about the song that's in it. So where the song comes from is, it's a very interesting story. I did all my research, made sure it'd be copyright free, so we should be okay. But,
Okay.
This song was actually made to be in a collaboration piece between Walt Disney and Salvador Dali. And this was being done back in the 1940s, and this is the song that was
wow.
going to accompany the piece. And it's just such a beautiful song. It's such a haunting quality, and again, speaks to lost love. And eventually, that short was canceled. You know, they couldn't make it. And then in 2003, they found the archives, and they became inspired by it. So they actually went back and finished the short. So there's a completed version.
Wow.
Now, if we played moments of the short, we'd be in trouble with TELUS. But I did my research, and the song itself never had a copyright put on it, so we should be all in the clear to play it. And yeah,
Cool.
This was the whole basis for the short. So
Yeah,
felt
yeah,
important to give a story to it.
Absolutely. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, sorry.
Go for it. Hey, go for
I
it.
don't want to feel like I'm rambling on too much, but I also love this song because it has that old sound to it, and
Yeah.
it makes you think the past, like
Yeah. It's like that 50s, smoke in the basement club or something like that to me. That's what I think of when I
yeah,
when I
you
think
can
of the
hear
50s.
the static.
Yeah,
the recording.
static is really good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Ooh.
The process. So when this was made, a little thing was going on called COVID.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's me as the man with the white mask.
Yep.
And also playing the woman.
Yep.
His love. And so that's why in these shots you'll often see only one figure, because I could only be one person at a time. So it really did allow me the chance to get creative about how do I make it seem like there's two people interacting with each other when it's me recording myself as one guy and then me putting on a completely different outfit.
I find that very interesting as
Yeah.
well too, and that's again, it's that forced perspective. You can cut wherever you need to, right? And I was gonna say, I really appreciate the storytelling, even with introducing a character and not fully exposing who they are as well too. Not only is that helpful for production means, obviously, because
Yeah.
you yourself want to represent something that's accurate, but I also think that's a very powerful tool because, like this part, I think it's very important to kind of just emphasize to the viewers as well is that you are now currently telling a story without any dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just a song in the background, and this I think is it's really good. You're able to hit these moments and to make sure that the message is still communicated. I think dancing, like the way. Aw. That is so good. That is so good because, it's, well, some people might be confused. Why are they leaning in? Or, why is the person leaning in? And then hitting the next cut with just the classic image of, sorry, I need to remember where my mic is. But the classic image of where the two people's feet are, I think is great. The way that you lift up the foot was really good too. Again, it just communicates the image so well. So.
And I love that
Yeah.
it's actually just a pair of shoes. There's nobody in that
Yeah.
other pair of
Just
shoes.
my pair of winter boots.
It's the illusion. Yeah,
I
love
saw that too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just playing with the illusion. That's so good. Oh my.
So I'll speak a bit to some of the guerrilla style filmmaking we had to
Yeah.
do with this.
Yeah.
Because I had to get kind of creative, especially when I was doing any kind of shot that moved. To the garbage can on both sides, so it looked more like I was grabbing a human body.
That's so good.
love it.
I was going to ask about the shadows as well too, if you were like literally just going with your phone and just going back, or yeah, no, that makes so much more sense as well too to again try to sell that illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's so
can
good.
see in the story-wise the taking off of the shirt, and like that is then, you know, the vulnerability coming through, and that he remains in that state at the beginning of the short film, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
know.
This being the same character and all.
Yeah.
I like that.
We're seeing his front when we only saw his back. And start.
Ah, interesting. Cool, cool,
So
cool.
good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
full
that's-
circle. They're leaving. What are you pulling out there?
A little hard, or wrote it well. What is that?
Okay, I've kind of spoke positively. If you want to know something I wish I could have gone back and done was fix this. That's supposed to be his heart.
Oh,
gifting
nice.
his heart to her, but maybe I just didn't get the shot quite right, or when I was mixing it.
I
That's
figured
okay.
it was his heart, but then I was like, oh, maybe it's the wilted rose.
Yeah.
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 Either or could still symbolize, I think,
symbolize,
the purpose.
Yeah.
Like, don't leave me, please. I love you. Cold shoulder. Yep. That's, ooh, the drop. Sorry, one thing I just want to like call out there was like there was the frantic pleading to then the slow, not acceptance yet. I don't think acceptance is the right word, but like
Yeah.
the slow, like almost realization of just like things are about to change.
Getting caught in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is my favorite edit in the short coming up. Watch this.
Okay. Nice. That is contrast. That's okay.
But yeah.
That's okay. You disappeared. That's fine. That's all good. Sorry to put you on the spot. No, I think that's probably all the time that we're gonna have. I kind of want to leave the rest of the ending for folks to kind of view on their own time as well too. But I think that was a very good perspective and way of digging into a little bit of your thought process of not only the film production quality as well too, but also just like that critiquing part of just observing the small differences and realizing the intentionality behind them. So I really appreciate that. Thank you again. You've been fantastic on this feature as well too, for just sharing all the information that you have so willingly as well too. And I hope our viewers will share the love down in the comments as well too. But I think that's all the time that we're going to have for today. So thank you so much for joining us.